And we are off and running. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the CAS 360 New Features webinar. My name is Warren, and I'll be taking you through the session today. A little bit of housekeeping, like normal. If you do have a question, please type it in the Q&A box that is provided part of Zoom. Jeremy from the CAS 360 team is ready to answer any of your questions that come through. I will do my best to address them all through the session as well, but Jeremy will be able to answer all of those questions for you. Welcome. It's the first time for 2023 that we've done a new features webinar, so I hope you are all well, and I'm ready to get into it. We've got a lot of features to cover off today, so let's get started on a couple of things. What I wanted to do before we dive into the features is talk a little bit about the ABRS and effectively the ASIC registry transformation. So you may have noticed, I think it might have been late last year, early this year, that there was a review that was announced. So that review is currently ongoing, and BGL have had a chance to meet with the person doing the review through a couple of the boards that we sit on, or advisory committees that we sit on. So that review is ongoing. We're expecting some results of the review to come out sort of June, July, so mid-year. And based on those results, we'll hopefully have a clearer path forward for the new registry system. Obviously, the system, the new registry did receive funding in the budget, so continuation funding for the new ABRS, and obviously ABRS received funding as well. There's a little nugget in there as well, a bit of research going into a register of trusts and beneficial owners as well in the budget papers. But that's all we can really say about the ASIC or ABRS registry modernisation project because of the review. There's not a lot of announcements or news coming out until post that review. So I am hopeful that once that review comes out, we'll have a clearer pathway, or at least a clearer plan forward for when the new registry will go live and when we can start to build some of these features into CAS 360, or new register of features into CAS 360. Like always, the webinar today is recorded, so the recording is ongoing. You'll be able to watch the replay soon on YouTube, but all of our webinars that we have done are on our BGL YouTube channel. So if you are a YouTube watcher, which we pretty much all are these days, you can subscribe to the BGL channel, and all of our webinars will be there. And we've got webinars all the way back to 2007 and 2017 and 2018. So you can watch all of those there, but this session will be recorded and emailed out to you as well, the link. The other thing I wanted to touch on was around trusts and the trust import spreadsheet. So if your firm is doing trust management, which just about all of you will be, if you haven't got a system for that, click on the trusts button over on the top left and you can download the trust import template, and you can get all of your trusts imported into CAS 360. I know that many of you will be doing trust distributions in a few weeks' time. If you haven't already started, there actually is a trust distribution webinar on our YouTube channel that you can watch that goes through all of the trust distributions, both unit and discretionary. Obviously, the discretionary distributions are quite detailed, and there's a fair bit of features and functionality in CAS 360 for those. So certainly have a look at that if you are going through that, and maybe you won't have to use Microsoft Word anymore for your trust distributions. Anyway, what we'll do now is we'll get into some of the new features, and we've released a lot of updates this year. We've moved to a 2-week sort of release cycle. So we're getting new features and new updates coming out every 2 weeks. Sometimes the updates are smaller, sometimes they're bigger. But yeah, you're getting a lot of new features and functionality coming out very frequently, which is great. So what I'll do is I'll start with the most recent update and work my way back to the start of the year. And we did release an update last Thursday. And the main feature for the Australian jurisdiction for that particular update was a new share transfer form that has been added to the document pack when preparing a change of beneficial ownership transaction. So if I go into my company and I go to my shareholder screen, what I've got down the bottom here is just a change of beneficial owner for Daniel. So if you weren't aware, you can easily add a change of beneficial owner transaction. So you click on add transaction and change to beneficial ownership. That's the transaction type here. Now, this doesn't prepare any ASIC forms because ASIC don't track beneficial owners, not yet, but there's no ASIC form for that. But if I do prepare that transaction and toggle that transaction on here, so if I click on edit, I can see that Daniel holds the shares with my trust as the beneficial owner, and the new beneficial owner will be the Rendon Family Trust. So just the new beneficial owner change there. Click on prepare forms. We've got our document pack, okay? And then we will also have here our share transfer form. Now the share transfer form here will cover off and will list both of the beneficial owners. So you can see it's transferring from Daniel with my trust to Daniel with the Rendon Family Trust in there. So it's a new the transfer form has been added to that change of beneficial ownership transaction. So that has been added. The next feature that we added was, and we had added this over a couple of releases, but was our reports. And we have added a register of seal entries. So the old seal, the old registries for those seal registers, we've got them in. So you can put the seal registers entries into CAS 360 and into the other data section. And now you can prepare a register of those seal entries. We did add a few features here to this screen as well. So obviously you can prepare the register, but you can select a date range for the entries. Okay, so if you were looking at entries over a 12-month period or a financial year period, you can select a date range. You're also able to filter by labels. You can also go to report settings and you can show and hide different columns on that register as well. So some functionality and filtering options for those seal registers. Moving on to version 81, which we released about 2 weeks ago. What we've added here is a couple of improvements. Obviously, I'm just going through some of the main features that we've added, but a couple of improvements around the alert hovers. I know that it was a little bit frustrating for me. I imagine it might have been for you with the sensitivity around the alert hovers. They're very sensitive, and sometimes they can flicker and you can not quite get to the alert that you want. So what we did is we just completely changed how we were doing this and made it a little bit more easier to move around and navigate. So the timing is a bit better, so you can have a look at all of your alerts now a little bit easier than before. So we've cleaned that up and made those alert hovers a bit better. The next feature is about director IDs. So we're all very familiar now with director IDs. So what we are doing now with our director ID functionality is we are sharing that with Simple Fund 360 and Simple Invest 360. So if you are using the practice management integration, so the XPM integration, or if you're just sharing contacts between CAS 360 and Simple Fund or Simple Invest 360, you are able to now have obviously your contact data synced, and that will now include director IDs. Okay, so you'll have all of that information shared across the application. So all of your director IDs will be seen in Simple Fund 360, which is obviously really important because with Simple Fund 360, that is obviously for your SMSFs, and SMSF trustee company directors are the biggest cohort of people that have not completed their director ID requirements. So if you do know, or I'm sure you'll have clients that are super fund trustee company directors, they are still required to get their director ID, and now we'll be able to share that data with Simple Fund 360 to identify in that application if director IDs are still outstanding. The next feature is we've added company labels to the annual review listing report. So again, if I go to my reports, and this was a big client wish list to be able to add this. So if I go to my company's listing report here, got a lot of reporting and filtering functions, even on the left-hand side, selecting my labels. But what we are able to do now is we're able to, if I deselect all and click Beam Group, what I'm able to do now is export this out to Excel. And when I export this report out to Excel and open it up, give me 2 seconds, we will have our company's listing report, and we will have label filters added to that report. So the company labels will come through, and there they are, and you'll be able to filter those labels as well. Okay, so we added the labels to that. Obviously, we've got a label filter, so you can, what you're able to do is filter the companies that are going to appear on the report by label, and then you're going to still have that label appear on the report itself. So hopefully that helps. There's a couple of questions here. Couple of questions here around how do we share between applications? I can touch on that a little bit later, but you certainly can share your contact information between CAS 360 and Simple Fund 360 through the dots up at the top right corner of the screen. Moving on, the next feature I'm going to touch on is to do with our identity verification integration with CloudCheck. So if I go to a contact, search for my contact. Now, you'll be very familiar with this screen, which is all of your contact information. What you might not be familiar with is the compliance tab. So this compliance tab has been around for a while now, and it has a whole heap of information around identity and identity verification, politically exposed, source of funds requirements, things like that. Now, these are sort of much more required in our New Zealand and Singapore jurisdictions, but they are in the Australian version. And what you're able to do is put in an identity document for that particular person. Okay, so I can put in the driver's license details here for Daniel. And then what I'm able to do is click on Verify Identity. And what this will do currently through CloudCheck, if you have an account, and you would need to get an account with CloudCheck to use this, but you're going to be able to verify that particular person's details that they have provided on that driver's license. So we can then do a verification on that particular driver's license. So a couple of the features that we've added to CloudCheck. First of all, if you have an account with CloudCheck, you can put in your account number, and that will be part of the reference, and that will mean that it obviously connects to your account. The other feature is we have two types of verification. So we have the data verification only, and this is where we're just verifying the data that has been provided. So in the case of Daniel, we would be verifying Daniel's driver's license with the state database. We can also then do a self-verification where essentially we are sending off an email to Daniel for him to complete not only the verification details, but also, if required, and you can toggle this on, a biometric check. Okay, so biometrics are probably something that's a little bit, or that is more required in New Zealand. But again, you've got the ability for them to provide their information, run the verification, and you can also add a biometric check as well if you wanted to go to that next level of verification for that person. All right. If we verify the client info on another platform, are we able to add that to CAS 360? Absolutely. And this is where you would be able to do that. Certainly, you're able to put in supporting documents, you're able to put in notes, you're able to put in who verified the details as well. So you can put that data in, absolutely. Thank you for your question. Okay, I'll move on now. And we've got a few features around trusts in version 80, which was, I think, released back in April. So the first thing we did here is we added a trust beneficiaries workflow. So for our trusts, I'm going to click on my trust screen, go to my trust. Now in your trust, so I've obviously got a whole heap of features and functions for trusts, very similar to our company feature set. We've got all the requirements that you'll need for your trust. In our beneficiaries screen, we've got the ability to obviously add a beneficiary, prepare distribution. So this is where you would prepare the distribution. But what we've added in this particular update was the ability for you to toggle or put the print toggle for a beneficiary, and then prepare some supporting documents for the appointment of a beneficiary. So again, this might be a sort of a more of a completeness feature where you have the beneficiary that's coming into the trust sign a document. There's certainly most cases in Australia aren't required to do this, but it certainly can be a completeness feature. And what you're able to do is obviously put in a resolution where we're going to have, or the trustees of the trust are going to appoint that beneficiary. So we've put that all into a trustee meeting minute and can be signed off. And we're also now preparing a register of trust beneficiaries. So you can see when those particular people became beneficiaries of the trust, and potentially when they ceased being beneficiaries of the trust. So not only can we prepare all your trust distributions, we'll also keep a register of your beneficiaries and of the minutes where the trustees decided to add the beneficiary. Plenty of features for trusts. If you're new to the trust feature set in CAS 360, there's a whole heap of exploring for you, but we certainly have a wide range of trust features and functions. And the best thing about trusts in CAS 360 is we don't charge for them. They're all free. The next feature that we added, and this one was another hotly discussed feature on the community, and that is the ability to reactivate a trust. So very similar to a company. With our deactivated companies and reactivated companies, I can understand why companies go on and off, because we charge for those particular entities. And if you've got companies on, then obviously you're paying for that particular company. With trusts, we obviously aren't charging, and there's no fee for trusts. So you could deactivate the trust, but you couldn't reactivate, or you had to get us to do it. So what we have now added is the deactivated trusts screen, and you're able to very easily click on restore and restore that trust. Okay, so that will bring that trust back to your trust selection screen with all of the trust data and all of the trust documents restored. One of the reasons we deactivate companies as opposed to deleting them is because deleting is scary, and we don't want to lose all of our beautiful data that we have built up over the years. So we deactivate them, and you can reactivate at any time. So there's that particular feature. And the next feature I'm going to talk about is around user roles for company registrations. Just with company registrations, every firm can register companies in CAS 360. So there is no sort of requirement other than you have a direct debit with ASIC. That's it. If you've got a direct debit account with ASIC, you can start running company registrations in CAS 360. Right, so what we can do is I can click on company registrations and click on the process of starting a company registration. And you have a really nice workflow here to prepare that company registration. Now, because everyone has access to the company registrations feature, there might be a requirement for you to lock down this particular feature. So if you click on the dots, you'll have a user option here. And what you're able to do is go into your users screen. So this is where you're able to set up users. Now, only a few of you will have access to this because you do need to have permissions to be able to edit users. But what you're able to do is click on admin and role settings, select your product and your role. And what you'll notice here is you've got some toggles here. So company registration screen. So you can toggle this on or off, and that will mean that that particular user can't go to the screen. But you might want them to be able to go to the screen, but not add another company registration. So what you've got here is add edit company registrations. Okay, and the last one here is the ability to prepare company registration documents. So again, you might want that particular user to be able to add and edit company registrations. However, they might not be able, you might not want them to be able to prepare company registration documents. So you've got that particular set of user role options there where you can lock down that company registration screen and process. You do have some other areas where you can lock down, so you can turn lodgement on and off for users. You can also prepare or turn adding and editing templates, email templates, document templates. If you wanted to lock those down as well, you've got permissions to do that. So I hope that helps. The main impediment that we usually get with company registrations is getting the constitution. But in CAS 360, you can buy a constitution, and we have two providers integrated, both Lightyear Docs and Smarter SMSF. So you are able to prepare and lodge the company registration in CAS 360. You'll get your form, or your form 201. You'll get your company registration certificate through into your system straight away, and it only costs the ASIC registration fee. There's no extra fee involved. So if you haven't used company registrations, certainly encourage you to do that. The next feature I'm going to talk about is to do with our shareholder report. So we added this particular feature, and this is the shareholder report sorting. We added this particular feature to our register, but also to our shareholder report. Now, what we had was a situation where, just because of the way we were ordering transactions, if you had an allotment and a transfer on the same date, there may be instances where the transfer could appear on the register or in the report in a different order. So that potentially the transfer might appear before the allotment. That was only if the transactions were of the same date, the same dated transaction. So we've obviously put some features in now where the allotments will always appear first before the transfers take place. And there's a couple of other obviously sequences that can take place, but we certainly added a feature and a function where that report will be ordered correctly, or that register will be ordered correctly. So that has been added, but if you were wanting to prepare a shareholder report or a shareholder Excel export, you can do that through options and shareholder report. We've got that Excel export there. Little fact is that if the company has more than 50 shareholders, then that's the way you need to provide the register to the courts. So we were required to add in a shareholder report all that time ago. Got a couple of questions coming in. Do you get all the consent share certificates if you order a company through CAS? Yes, you do. So the company registration process will have all of your supporting documents, both pre and post company registration documents. And in CAS 360, is there a facility/process that allows you to seek refunds of overpaid ASIC fees? Unfortunately, no. The only way to get a refund from ASIC is to obviously contact them. And the best way to do that is through their online inquiries. That would be my recommendation, to go through there. But certainly, no, we can't do anything around refunds from CAS 360. It would need to be done from the ASIC inquiries process. All right, moving on. I'm going to go now to version 79, which was released, I think, at the end of March. Now, the first feature I'm just going to explain because it's not all that functional, or you don't see it. It's a back-end improvement, but we have done a whole heap of work on, I suppose, with privacy in mind, a whole heap of work around detailed levels of encryption for personal identifiable information. So that's about as much as I'll say on it, but we do encrypt the database, but personal identifiable information is another level and another layer, and we've done a whole heap of work in the background there to keep that safe and secure. Next feature I'm going to talk about is for limited by guarantee companies. Now, we have done a whole heap of work for limited by guarantee companies. So when a company's class is limited by guarantee, we now have a members section, and this is obviously around the guarantors and putting in the guarantee amounts. So you can see here, because this is a limited by guarantee company as opposed to a limited by shares company, we've got guarantors, or we've got an amount that is required to put in. So instead of having share transactions, we obviously have the guarantee transaction, and we can have an effective date and a cease date, obviously the currency, the guarantee amount, things like that. Our company registration, we do have company registration of limited by guarantee companies as well. And we also have company reports for limited by guarantee companies. So it's my family super fund. If I go to my reports screen, company report, previously the limited by guarantee companies wouldn't be here. What I'll do, just find that entity. There we go. Can export that out. And what you'll see is obviously we have the company officers, but we have the company guarantor here as well. So that will be appearing there. So you'll have that information in there as well. Okay, if I move along to the next option, which is the automated debt reminders, we've basically changed the handling of automatic debt reminders and effectively changed how we're involving the annual review as part of that automatic debt reminder. So to start, and for those that attended the masterclass, I'll be reheating old soup here, but in settings, automated reminders, we have an automated system for your ASIC debt reminders. And if you are sending these debt reminders out to clients through the debt alert, you can obviously keep doing that. But what we've done is we've built an automated process that is effectively a set and forget, and it will allow you to send out automatic debt reminders, and including the ASIC invoice, for your clients on a regular basis. So effectively, CAS 360 will check the debts every day, receive the ASIC invoices, does that all automatically while you sleep. And if you turn this function on, it will email your clients those debt reminders, in my case, every 7 days, automatically for you. So you won't have to do any of this. And it's certainly one of the big automation features that we added last year. We do have a heap of clients that are using it. It's quite well used now, which is great. But if you're not using it, I certainly encourage you to have a look. What you are able to do is obviously select labels. Okay, so one of the new features we added was the ability for you to select labels. So if you wanted to try this out with just a small set of clients, maybe a couple of partner companies, for example, you can do this. But if obviously once you've got the process all set up, you can then apply it for all clients, or you can apply it for all clients except a few, prickly clients that maybe don't want it. And you can put them in a particular label, for example. But what you're able to do is obviously apply labels and turn this particular feature on, and it will mean that you are sending out, the CAS 360 is sending out automatic debt reminders for your firm. What we changed was a little bit of the logic around the annual review, and I think we just made it a little bit simpler, to be honest. With an automatic debt reminder, if the company annual review has been received, but not yet processed, the debt reminder won't be sent, because we don't want to be in a situation where we are sending the client a reminder about their debt with ASIC before they've received their annual company statement. So what we are doing is, when we receive your annual company statement, whilst the annual review has not been processed, okay, no automatic debt reminders will be sent. When the annual review is then processed through the annual review screen, so if that's processed the next day or in 2 weeks' time, for example, when that annual review is processed, the counter for the automatic reminder starts. So the concept of the counter is automatically send every. So here I have 7 days as my setting. So this means that the debt reminders will start 7 days after I process the annual review. They will not go out before I process the annual review. So if the annual review is sitting in my CAS 360, in my annual review screen for 2 weeks, then the client will not receive a reminder about this for 3 weeks, because it will effectively be another 7 days. Obviously, you can extend that out if you wanted to make it 14 days, or if you wanted to make it 21 days, you can certainly do that as well. But the reminders won't start until after you've sent out the annual review. So just to make that really clear. And what you need to do is, you obviously need to process the annual review. You can't just change the status. You actually need to go through and process. So even if you download it, you need to process it. If you need to reprocess the annual review, you just need to go to the document screen. Okay. Let's find the annual review. And what you'll need to do is you just need to click on options and reprocess annual review. When I've got one. So reprocess annual review. And that will send it back to the annual review screen. There we go. Just see if there's any questions. Yeah, there's a couple of questions here about, are the reminders logged? So yes, they will appear in your messages outbox. However, what you will also get is a complete what we call automation report that will come to you every single day. So every single day, when you log into CAS 360, again, there's a lot of firms that are using this today. When you log into CAS 360, what you will get is a screen telling you all the reminders that CAS 360 has sent for you in that day, in the last 24 hours. And it will also tell you all of the reminders that the system tried to send, but it was failed. Okay. So it was effectively failed. And that might have been because you didn't put an email address in for that particular person, or that we had no contacts attached to that particular company. So yeah, there'll be a whole heap of those sort of, they'll all be identified to you, I guess, is the answer I want to explain there. But so that was the automatic debt reminders, and obviously the new handling of that with the annual review. The next release we did was version 78. So we added a few more features here. The first one is we added incorporation date to the company selection screen filters. So for those that weren't aware, you can, in your company selection screen, click on filter columns. And what you're able to do here is add in the columns that you wanted to appear on the company selection screen. You can also change the order of the existing columns as well. There's only two that you need to have, and they are the company name and the alerts. The rest are up to you. But if you wanted to add something like the billing contact or the manager, okay, the client number, for example, the client reference number, billing date, financial year end date, not so relevant for Australia, but more for Singapore. And the new feature that we added here was incorporation date. So I click on save, and now my incorporation date will appear in my screen. Okay, so I can see that. But again, if I filter the columns, what I'm able to do is actually move the incorporation date up to a different position. So I can move it next to my annual review date, for example. Click on save, and that will refresh my screen. And I'll now have my incorporation date next to my annual review date. Okay, so you've got full control over, I suppose, where these particular fields are shown. So we added incorporation date to the company selection screen options. The other feature that we added was a contact compliance report for individuals. So you'll mention earlier, I showed going through the process of verifying the identity for Daniel or putting in some identity information for Daniel. We've also added reports. So if I wanted to go to my AML reports, my compliance report, and my compliance status listing report, I can prepare those particular reports for those individuals. So for the compliance report is more of a complete report for the entity. For the compliance status listing will include that individual. Oh, got a question here. There's a question about, are those filter columns in the company screen, are they company-wide or they're individual? They're per user. So you can set the columns up yourself without annoying anyone. You can also play a good practical joke on someone, that'd be good. All right, the next feature I'm going to talk about is just with the company report. You can now show the alternate address for an officer. Okay, so for contacts, we have added a fair bit of information around secondary data that can be shown. So if I go into Daniel, what I've got is a couple of different things. So obviously the residential address, but I can click and put in another address. Okay, so I can put in an alternate address. I can put in a business address, postal address, service address, things like that. In the instance where we have an alternate address, this is really where we're using a suppressed address and things like that. So what will mean is that the address that goes to ASIC will be the registered address, but you can put an alternate address to appear in reports, for example. So you can do that. The other area obviously is around emails. So I can have a primary email here, but I can also go in and add a secondary email if I wanted to do that. Okay. Now you can't select the secondary email yet in document production. That'll be coming soon. But you can add multiple emails for each particular individual as well. A couple of questions here. Where can we preview the automatic debt reminder email template? Great question. I'll just show you that before I jump into the next feature. All of your email templates that are sent are in settings, email templates, right? Now, with the automatic debt reminder, it does use the company debt reminder template. So effectively, it will look like this, but you can customize it. One of the great features of CAS 360 is we allow you to customize all of the emails and all of our documents. So you've got complete control over how it looks and feels. We're trying to keep it sort of clean here, but you can change the fonts, the wording, the layout, everything. You just need to keep obviously the merge fields because that shows the dynamic data that will appear. The Pay Now button obviously links to AusPost Bill Pay. So you've got the ability for the client to click on that and pay the bill quickly. You'll also have the invoice automatically attached if you toggle that on. Now, you can customize obviously this email. And if you haven't customized any of the email templates, just click on Create New based on the modern. And then you've got your own template and you can customize that. All you need to do is when you go to automated reminders, you just need to select the email template here, okay, that you want to use. hit save. And that will now be the email template that is sent. So full control over that through the settings screen. Next feature I'm going to talk about again in my contact screen is to do with name layout. So in the name section, we have added a name layout. Okay, so it's just how you want that name to appear. Obviously, the data and the data that's transmitted to ASIC and things like that will not be affected because ASIC has very strict standards on the way the data is formatted to them. But you can change the name layout if you wanted to do that for that particular individual. Couple of questions here. Can you send a reminder to sign the annual resolution without sending the annual statement as well? Well, Catherine, you can when you send a reminder for a document, you are able to not attach the document, for example. However, we've obviously found it to be a little bit better if you do attach it, simply because your client sometimes can't find it. So sending the document again with it attached might help. Will there ever be a feature that brings in the due date of the ASIC invoice in the email template? One of the biggest problems we have with that is that ASIC don't provide us a due date. So we can provide you with the annual review due date, right, as part of the email template. However, not all debts are related to the annual review. One of the big pushes that I've asked the ABRS for as part of the new system is much more detail around invoicing and being able to manage invoicing a fair bit. So what I mean by that is having line items. So again, we don't get line items, we just get a balance. Getting due dates, again, we don't get due dates, we just get a balance as of today. So there's a few limitations that we kind of have to work around that hopefully the new system can address. There's a question here that I will touch on because I quite like it, is when does CAS 360 use the casual name? Obviously, you can see Daniel has a casual name of Danny, and you can obviously put in a casual name for a person. The casual name is used on letters and emails. So in this particular case, Daniel has a casual name of Danny. And when he sent an email from CAS 360, CAS 360 is smart enough to put in Danny instead of Daniel because it's a casual name. So obviously this is a nice way of putting in a preferred name, for example. We use the term casual name, but it's effectively a preferred name. It doesn't appear on any of the legal documents, but it does appear on the communication documents. Hope that makes sense. Can you resend solvency resolution with debt reminders? No, they're two separate processes at this stage. One will be a request for signing, one will be a request for payment. All right, I'll touch on a couple of those questions a bit later because I want to keep moving on. So I've touched on the name layout. Again, the other feature was obviously, I already talked about this, so I won't go into it. It was around the ordering of the same date of transactions, this time on the register in that update. Obviously, we added the C state for limited by guarantee companies as well. So that was that particular feature. I've also sort of talked a bit about the next feature, which is the limited by guarantee company registration. So that was also done there. So the next release was version 75, and I'll go through that now. So the first feature we've got here is the ability to have 2-column signing lines on all resolutions. So if I go into my company, select an officer appointment here, what I'm able to do is when I go into my director's meeting minute or resolution, click on resolution, got a toggle here, signing line in 2 columns. So you may have seen this and you may be using this, you may not have used this. But if I toggle this on and hit save, when I prepare my director's meeting minute or resolution, the signing line will appear across 2 columns. Right? So the main reason for this is because sometimes the signing lines, if there's 4 or 5 or 6 directors, can move over to a second page. And it can just not look as nice, I guess. So if you wanted to have those signing lines all on one page, you can do that. So nice and easy. And we've added that support for all of our resolutions. So it was quite a big task there, but we added that support for all of our resolutions when it comes to signing those documents. The next feature is in the same place, but it was for our minutes. So if I click on minutes now, again, you may have seen this, but you can now include an attendee list on every minute in the system as well. So again, all you need to do is toggle that on, click save. And when you go to prepare your minutes, there'll be an extra document, which will be your attendee list. Okay, so that was there. Obviously, the meeting address and meeting time can be edited in the options screen as well, but you've now got an attendee list for that meeting as well. The next feature I'll just talk about, but it is all to do with our ASIC lodgements and how we've been lodging with ASIC. So you may see this through our notifications, but effectively what we've done is we've really streamlined the ASIC lodgement process, removed a lot of unnecessary sort of automated lodgements that were cluttering up the system a little bit. And that should ultimately result in you getting quicker reports and quicker responses from ASIC. So I hope you have noticed that. It's been in the product for about 5 months now, and is going really well, really reduced a lot of the load and hopefully sped up a lot of the lodgements and validations. We do obviously from time to time get delays on validation reports. A lot of that's out of our control, but certainly in some of the areas where the validation report is available quickly, we're picking it up a lot quicker than we ever were. The next feature is obviously a big one and one that was requested a lot, and I hope many of you have had a chance to use it. And that is the ability to send the ASIC annual review invoice in a separate email. So if I go through the process of preparing my annual review, you'll notice now down the bottom of the screen, we have a second option here, send invoice in separate email, and I've toggled mine on. And what I'm able to do here is by default, we'll automatically pre-fill the billing contact here. So you don't have to type someone in all the time. If the company has an existing billing contact, it will be automatically added here. And what you're able to do is just send the ASIC invoice in a separate email to a different person. So, or the same person, but it will go in a separate email. So a lot of the time where we had digital signing of the annual company statement, one of the complaints we would often hear is that the clients would miss the invoice when digitally signing, maybe hoping that it would go away. Only joking. But obviously the invoice wasn't seen well enough. So they completed the signing of the annual company statement and thought that the task was completed. What this option will now do is obviously the digital signing of the annual review can still all be done. And then the invoice is able to be sent to a person who will pay the invoice. So it might be a director, it might be an accounts person, it might be the main contact that you have with that particular company. But what it does mean is the invoice will be sent in a separate email just by toggling this on. So hopefully you're able to have a look at that feature. There's one more part of this feature that I'll go through before I get into any questions, and that is the ability for you to edit that email template. So there is a dedicated email template for that. So you will be able to prepare that, or to view that and customize that in any way that you like. So you can completely customize that email. And there's a couple of questions here that I'll try to get to. If we send an annual review package out for signing via the Fuse Sign option, and we toggle send invoice in separate email, when the send a reminder email to sign the documents, does the package include the ASIC invoice or just the documents? Chantel, it includes just the documents. We take the invoice out and it is sent in a separate email. This question here, I'm unable to select that option. How do I get it activated? It's certainly activated. Jeremy might be able to answer there. It's certainly activated. There's a couple of things that you do need to check. Make sure that the invoice is toggled on. Okay, that's the first thing. But there's a couple of things that you'll need to check, but it's certainly activated for everyone. It just may be a case that the settings on the page have it toggled off, and we will just need to check a couple of those settings. There's a question here, can we download a list of contacts? Reach out to us. You can't do it in the application. Reach out to us and we'll help you out. All right, moving on. I have touched on selecting labels in automatic debt reminders, sorry. The next feature I'll talk a little bit about is the auto lodging of the RA71 once we receive a Form 362. So you may have already seen this. Hopefully, if you're lodging 362s, you will see it. What we wanted to do is just add another automated lodgement when it's needed. So when you lodge a Form 362 for a company, CAS 360 will automatically lodge a RA71 for that company. What that will allow you to do is, as soon as that's come in via the notification, you can click import, or you can just go options and click on import from ASIC. Certainly, if you don't have the history, that's going to be the easiest way to do it. So as soon as you lodge that 362 and you get it accepted, CAS 360 will automatically lodge the RA71, and you'll be able to click on import, and you'll be able to import that detail. So you'll have the ability to have that all started and running. Two more features to cover off before I get into questions, if there are any. So if you've got your question, now's your time to type it in. The next feature is the multi-company annual review, and where you can change the CC and BCC. So if you haven't had a look at the multi-company annual review, it is there. You can prepare your annual reviews in bulk. You need to use these options across the top line here. So here, what I'm able to do is I can select all, click on prepare documents, and this will prepare the documents for all 4 companies, not just one. So click on prepare. System will tell me that I've failed some comparison reports, but I'm going to say proceed anyway. And what I can do is go through the process now of effectively going through and preparing the annual reviews for all companies. I'm going to deliver by email. So there's my document packs here, and digital signing is included as well. Click deliver by email. One of my companies doesn't have an agent, so I'll add one. And what you've got here is now who is going to receive the document pack. So obviously we've got these signers that are receiving it all by default. But what you're able to do is include things like billing contacts or partners and managers, things like that. So you can include those. And what you're also able to do is also type in anyone and add them in as well. Okay, so we've got a lot more flexibility around the CC and BCC fields. Obviously, the client emails are locked because they are the clients that need to sign. So if you needed to change those emails, you can change them on the screen, but you can't change the contact because that's already been preset for the company. So you're able to do that. The last feature I'm going to talk about, and it may have to do with may help you with your debt reminder emails, but effectively or your annual review emails for that matter, we've added a merge field for the first and second annual review late fee. Okay, so what you're able to do is you're able to put those merge fields into the email templates. So you can maybe try to scare the client into paying a bit quicker by telling them how big the fee is. And there'll be a fee change on the 1st of July, and CPI was 7%, so it's going to be a big one. Those fees are going to get a lot higher. Now that covers off the end of the new feature content and the new features that we've released so far this year. What I'll do now is answer any questions that come through the Q&A. So if you do have any questions, please feel free to ask. Yeah, there's a question here about the automatic RA71 sometimes failing. It's a bit annoying from our perspective, purely because we get an acceptance from ASIC regarding the 362, and then we lodge an RA71, and it says that you're not authorized by a 362, which is a bit silly. I would much like it to work properly. Our only option here is really to add a delay to that RA71. Just to give ASIC a little bit more time. Can we send the invoice separately via the bulk processing? Not at this stage, but it's certainly something we're looking to add. If you send the invoice separately, does that mean it doesn't go with the annual review and resolution? Or does the client get it twice? No, Catherine, just to be really clear, if you're sending the annual statement separately, the invoice separately, sorry, the invoice is not included in the original pack, right? So what that will mean is there will be 2 emails. One will include the pack without the invoice, and one will include the invoice and no pack, if that makes sense. So what we've tried to do is make it really clear to the receiver that there's two steps. There's the signing of the documents, and then there's the payment of the invoice. If that is a multiple director company, for example, you might have 4 directors, then obviously the 4 directors will receive the signing requirement, and then maybe only 1 director will receive the invoice, or 1 director from the accounts department will receive the invoice, if that makes sense. So the invoice is not included in the pack. That's the bottom line there. When I print annual reviews for those that prefer paper docs, it prints 2 annual statements and 2 ASIC invoices, one with the ASIC logo and one without. Why is this? Joe, it would be to do off the top of my head with what is toggled on in your review screen. So just make sure that if you've got here, the ASIC, the annual company statement here, this is the CAS version, right? So this is based on CAS information. It has signing and it also has your invoice. So if you have that on, you're getting an invoice and you're getting the statement. So, oh, sorry, other way around, I got that confused. This is the CAS version of the statement and this is the CAS version of the invoice, okay? So this will give you a company statement, this will give you an invoice. If you include the ASIC statement, that is the one that is combined and has an invoice and the ASIC statement as well. My advice here is you either toggle the annual company statement and ASIC invoice on, or you toggle them both off and turn the ASIC, the official ASIC version on. Having them both on will lead to you getting 2 invoices. Sorry for mixing them up. Can we send document packs via both DocuSign and PDF in the bulk ACS, or do we need to process them separately? Good question. Jeremy, I can go through. Let's have a look. I might be able to turn some off. Let me have a look. You might have to do one for digital signing and one for not digital signing, but feel free to correct me, Jeremy. I think that they might have to be. Yeah, Jeremy's typing now. He might know. If you select separate invoice option, can we also attach our preparation invoice to that same email? Great question, Linda, so that the client can receive our preparation fee and the ASIC fee. Yeah, great question, Linda. Unfortunately, my answer is not as great at this stage. No, you can't do that, but it's a good idea. Maybe one day we will. All right, there's no more questions, which hopefully is good. If you do have any more questions, please send them through now. If you do have any more questions, please send them through now and I'll answer them. But I will take this moment now to say thank you for coming along to the session today. I hope it's been valuable for you. Yeah, we really enjoy developing these features and bringing them to you. So hopefully they have been able to help you out in your roles, and yeah, you enjoy using them. I just got one more question here. Is it proposed to add another digital signing partner, e.g. Please Sign? Yeah, we would love to add more, and I think that Please Sign is very high on the list, Drew. So yeah, certainly we're not, we plan to build an open platform. Some of these things take a little bit of time to develop, and that's why they don't always come in straight away. But yeah, our intention is clearly to add a few Please Sign and others beyond. So yeah, we'll see how we go. But it does take a bit of time to add them all in. So in time, we'll get there. Doesn't look like there's too many questions. So again, thank you all for coming along to the session today. I'll let you go and have a fantastic Tuesday. Thank you very much for coming along today. Goodbye for now.